Hello, Steve White, TrekBoy89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I'm here with my Star Trek props because I never play with this shit. I don't know, I have a lot of this stuff, and I just leave it on the shelf or in the box or wherever. Even have my Beyond badge. I did buy some merchandise. I did actually support the films. Even though they were mindless action films, I kind of thought they might bring in a new audience who might respond to what I thought would be intelligent traditional Star Trek TV series. Instead, they just made Discovery. Now, with the new films, there's a bit of talk, and it's not really new because I've already made videos on this. We already know all this. I really wish that was higher. No, it doesn't matter. We already know that none of the films are happening. They are revising everything because Star Trek is a mess. And it's interesting that they've mentioned that they're now mentioning it. They're talking about it. They're saying how the president of Paramount basically now is sitting back and looking at their options and saying, what are we going to do with Star Trek the films? What are we going to do? Now, apparently there are three options. It started off they were going to do a sequel to Beyond, Star Trek 4. It was going to be Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine. Basically, Daddy Kirk was going to somehow interact with Baby Kirk. And it was all about getting foreign dollars with the Marvel star, basically. That fell through when they tried to pay them less because they already had contracts which said how much they were going to pay them. They tried to get out of paying them because they're idiots. And the film collapsed. But apparently that's still an option somehow. There was talk of recasting using the same script, same story, but recasting, but without the cast is pointless. So that, I don't know how that's an option. The second option, there were two at the same time basically that were announced. The second option technically was Noah Hawley's version. Is that how you say his name? I can't remember. I don't have my notes. I don't have my doctor's notes because I can't read them. I can't read my writing anyway. Now, this was happening, but then he said, I want to recast. I don't want to use this current Star Trek. I want to reboot the whole thing. And they're like, we have barely even survived this reboot. Fans hate it. We're struggling to keep anyone interested. We don't need to do another reboot. We want to use the original. We want to use what's established. So they basically said to him, you've made this too complicated. You were just supposed to come in and write a film for the pre-existing universe, not write your own opus. So that's on the back burner. And the third option was, which is now more horrific than ever, the Quentin Tarantino. He watched an episode of Star Trek, A Piece of the Action, where an alien race gets a hold of a gangster knowledge of American gangsters, and then they recreate their whole planet to be like the gangster era. And honestly, it was probably just an excuse from the Star Trek producers to make a period episode so they can use all the costumes and save money in that. And it was okay. It was entertaining. Had a few moments. But the idea of making that into a film, basically he wanted to make a brutal, gory gangster film, sort of in the spirit of The Revenant. Was it The Revenant? No, God. I can't pronounce anything. I can't remember what the name of that film is. I think maybe I got it right, who knows. But you know the one I'm talking about, the one he did a little while ago. They got all the Oscar buzz with Leonardo DiCaprio getting banged by a bear. He basically wanted to do that, and I'm like, how is that a Star Trek film? That's not a Star Trek film. Star Trek is not gangsters. I mean, it's okay to do a story like that in a TV series where you can sort of do variant stuff in each episode. You can't do it in a movie series where it's one every 3 years. It has to be a Star Trek story, a Star Trek movie. It can't be something else because you can't just tune in the next week and go, oh, well, that was fun for this week. Next week we'll have Star Trek again because it's 3 or 4 years or maybe 6 years until the next movie, depending on how badly they do. So we can't, dear Lord, we can't let that happen. We cannot have, and I don't even think Tarantino is a great artist. He just copies stuff. He just copies stuff and makes it cool, and makes people think they're really clever because they understand what he's doing and they think I don't even want to go into Tarantino. I've already done a video on him. Well, more on the last movie he did. But I never liked Tarantino. I was never impressed by him. I love the Gimp scene, of course, but I was never impressed by him, and I never understood why so many people were obsessed with him, except the fact they didn't actually understand what makes films good. As far as writing and creating, I mean, I guess the experience is the same regardless of if you're viewing the original or if you're viewing a copy or a rip-off or something. And I guess the only good thing about him is some of the eras that he actually likes, is obsessed with, and copies are actually fun. So it's not like you can't enjoy the films. But I don't want to see him doing a Star Trek film. So basically, we just got an article basically confirming that yes, there were 3 films in the works. None of them are happening. They're all on hold because they don't know what to do. There's problems with each project. They've got cast and budget issues with the JJ verse. They've got artistic issues with the Noah Hawley film, and Tarantino fortunately said he wasn't going to do anymore. Wasn't going to do the film because it wouldn't work. I guess it's too similar to the 1960s film he just did. I can't remember the name of it now. The one where he tried to degrade Bruce Lee and just do all these ridiculous things. I just don't understand why it's so hard for these people to just make a Star Trek film. Star Trek is an intelligent science fiction series based in a utopian future with evolved human beings, which are basically like superheroes that we can aspire to, and a place we want to be. Adventures. We want to be on that ship and see amazing things, strange new worlds, new civilizations. That's what they promised us at the end of the first film. I thought, it's an origin film. They're setting it up so people who don't know Star Trek can get into it. In the next film, they're going to be out, in space doing, Starfleet stuff, Star Trek stuff. It's going to be a Star Trek film. The next film was another on-the-planet action film with no science fiction story, just revenge, trying to redo Khan. And that's part of the problem. Producers who don't know what Star Trek is, and people in Hollywood and people in the public who don't know what Star Trek is, think it's Wrath of Khan. They think it's Kirk and that fighting some baddie. The goodies fighting the baddies, but they're just in a spaceship. And they keep remaking the same damn film. And Wrath of Khan is not the great Star Trek film everyone says it is. It is a good film, but it ruins so much of Star Trek. It makes... God, I have to do a separate video about that. But basically, it tries to militarize Starfleet. It tries to make it more like us and relatable, which is not what Star Trek is. It's about a distant future to aspire to, not a time that we're in now. So I never really liked... God, I've forgotten the director's name. My God, I can see a picture of him in my head directing Star Trek 6, but what was his name again? I need to write better notes because things just go out of my head when the camera's on. God, yeah, he did Star Trek 2 directing, Star Trek 6 directing, and I think he co-wrote Star Trek 4 or Ghost wrote or had something to do with the story. He brought an element of Star Trek which sort of appealed to the general audience and did help Star Trek a bit so far as people watching it being more appealing to more the general audience. But he didn't actually undermine any of the other elements of the show, so he got away with it, unlike Kurtzman and the new producers and all that, where they are deliberately trying to destroy what Star Trek is because they don't like it, and they want to make it appeal to the masses because they think that's where the money is and where the marketing is and where they're going to get the merchandising. But none of those people care enough about Star Trek. They'll maybe watch it if it's marketed differently. If it's a different format and marketed for them, they might watch it when they wouldn't have normally watched a Star Trek film or episode. But they're not going to become fans. They're not going to go out and buy the calendars and buy the phases and buy the things that they need to support the show. So this is not going to work. But yeah, I sort of wanted to comment on it just because I feel like I kind of want to follow the whole story, and I've already covered all the films separately and why they're failing, why they're going nowhere. And this is more just a confirmation that yes, all these things are on hold They don't know what they're doing. And the president, whose name I don't remember and I should have written down, just doesn't know what to do. And I'm like, you just need to wipe the board clean and just get someone who loved Star Trek, who knew what Star Trek was, to write a story where the crew is out in space, encountering an alien race, a problem from outside, not internal, an external problem, and have them find a solution which doesn't involve shooting and killing everyone. That's why Star Trek 1 and 4 were the best Star Trek films, because they weren't just some villain, some baddie being fought in space. They actually were about something, and there was an intelligent response and a resolution, or an interesting resolution to the problem, rather than just a big space battle at the end. So I just wish they would do something like that. And by the way, if you actually look at the adjusted dollars, and we don't know all the money for Star Trek the Motion Picture because a lot of the international markets aren't counted. No one seems to be able to find how much they made, although I've heard the film made $175 million at one point. So it did much better than people think, but they wanted it to look like it lost money. That's why they always lumped in all the money they spent on Star Trek Phase 2 and all that stuff before the production of the film into the budget to make it look worse. But basically, God, what was my point? They just need to do something like that because they actually made more money. Star Trek 1 and 4 made pretty much the same money as Star Trek 2009 when you add for inflation. I still don't know. I don't know if... I think once you actually take into account the budget issue with Star Trek 2009, it was less profitable than 1 and 4. Yes, Star Trek 1 and 4 were more profitable than Star Trek 2009, but Star Trek 2009 made more so far as audience money and attendance. But that cost so much more that, what's the point? So they need to go back to the sort of formula that made Star Trek 4 and 1 work, and they work on totally opposite different levels. One is totally cold science fiction, the other one is very contemporary, humorous, warm, character-driven. They both work perfectly in their own way. They both made a bunch of money, and they need to go back to something like that. So that's it. That's my little rant about that. I just don't know why it's so hard. Why can't they just get fans in to consult? Not just random. They always focus on the non-fans. How do we get the non-fans? The non-fans. The non-fans aren't going to buy your movie, and they're not going to buy your DVDs. They're not going to buy your phases. Jesus. But no one listens to us, so I don't know why I'm even talking. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Comments are fun, even the crazy ones. And I get a few of them.